Before we move into the presentation, we'd like to hear from CNC staff. As outlined in CMD 18H2, H2.A and H2.B. I understand Ms. Tadros, you'll make the presentation. Please proceed.
Thank you, sir. And good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Haiti Tadros. I am the Director General of the Directorate of Nuclear Cycle and Facilities Regulation at the Cnse. With me today and on my left are my colleagues Mr. Jean Leclerc, Director of the Nuclear Laboratories and Research Reactors Division, as well as Mr. Nan Tran, Senior Project Officer of the same division. We are joined by Cnse colleagues here in Pembroke and in Ottawa via teleconference, who are familiar with this file and are available to answer any questions the Commission may have. Our presentation today will discuss Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, or CNL, application to renew the site license for the Chalk River Laboratories, requesting authorization for continued operation for a period of 10 years, ending March 31, 2028. Our presentation, identified as CMD 18H2B, provides a summary as well as highlights from CNSC staff's written submissions found in CMD 18H2 and the supplementary submission CMD 18H2A. This slide provides the contents of our presentation today. We will begin by first summarizing the purpose of this hearing, followed by an overview of the Chalk River Laboratory site. We will then highlight CNSC staff's review of the license application, as well as CNSC's regulatory oversight activities of the Chalk River Laboratory site. Specific to concerns raised by interveners on the license and LCH, we have a few slides to describe the license and clarifications and improvements made to the Chalk River Laboratories license and LCH. Lastly, we will summarize CNSC staff's conclusions and recommendations to the Commission on the license renewal request by CNL. Before we get into our presentation, there are a few corrections that need to be had. The following 4 items are corrections to CNSC staff's CMD 18H2. On page 39 of section 3.6.3.1, CNL mean time between failures improved to 565 hours. On page 46 of section 3.7.3.1, the effective dose was assessed for 6,766 non-nuclear energy workers. On the same page, 46 of section 3.7.3.1, the maximum effective dose for a nuclear energy worker since 2012 was 0.74 millisieverts. And lastly, on page 49 of section 3.7.3.1, the 2011 event referenced in the footnote to the table 7 predates 2012. Please note these 4 changes do not affect CNSC staff's overall conclusions. We do apologize for any confusion this may have caused. The next slide provides the purpose of this hearing. CNL's renewal application was submitted to the CNSC in March 2017. In their submission, CNL has requested that the Commission renew the Chalk River Laboratories operating license for a period of 10 years, carrying over activities that have already been approved in the current license. It is important to clarify at this point, and for the record, that Commission consideration of a permanent waste disposal facility, referred to as a near-surface disposal facility, or NSDF, is excluded from this hearing. Additionally, Commission consideration of decommissioning activities for the nuclear power demonstration reactor, decommissioning activities for the White Shell 1 reactor, and any consideration related to a small modular reactor are also excluded from this hearing. I will now pass the presentation over to Mr. Jean Leclerc, who will provide an overview of the site.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président et les membres de la Commission. My name is Jean Leclerc. I am the Director of the Nuclear Laboratories and Research Reactors Division. The next few slides will provide an overview of the Chalk River Laboratories and discusses the activities carried out at this facility. Chalk River Laboratories are owned by the Government of Canada through Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, or AECL. The site is operated by CNL. The site is located near Chalk River on the south bank of the Ottawa River in the province of Ontario. Chalk River Laboratories, or CRL, has been in operation since 1944 and is host to a wide variety of activities such as nuclear research and development, isotope production, and nuclear services. Cnsc maintains a site office at the Chalk River Laboratories to provide day-to-day regulatory oversight of the authorized activities. This image highlights the Cnse site office and a few facilities at the Chalk River Laboratories. As you will see on the right corner, we can see the NRX reactor, which was shut down in 1992. To the left of it, we can see the NRU reactor, which is planned to be shut down at the end of March of this year. We can also see where the Cnse site office is located on site. As well, we can see the Harriet Brooks building, which CNL briefly mentioned in their presentation as a new facility for doing research. The Chalk River Laboratories site license includes the operation of research reactors, including the NRU reactor, nuclear fuel development and fuel fabrication facilities, Class II prescribed equipment, nuclear laboratories, and waste management facilities, including waste treatment, packaging, and storage facilities. The Chalk River Laboratories were historically owned and operated by AECL. Chalk River Laboratories is the largest nuclear research facility in Canada, having made significant contributions in multiple fields of science, nuclear research, and nuclear medicine. In recent years, there have been changes to the licensee's operating organization. In February 2013, the Government of Canada announced its intention to engage a private sector contractor to manage operations at Chalk River Laboratories under a government-owned, contractor-operated business model. To achieve this model, CNL was first created as a subsidiary of ACL. Then the Commission transferred the CRL license to CNL, who remained the licensee. Finally, the process was completed when the management of CNL was contracted to Canadian National Energy Alliance, or CNEA, in 2015. Under this model, CNL remains the licensee and operator of Chalk River Laboratories and continues to be subject to the same regulatory requirements and obligations. The CNSC continues to provide regulatory oversight of CRL. In April 2016, CNL applied for an amendment to the Chalk River Laboratories license to align the end of the license period with the planned permanent shutdown of the NRU reactor. The shutdown of the NRU reactor represents a major change in site operations and a major change in overall site risks. This would also allow CNL management further time to implement organizational changes and further develop longer-term plans for the site prior to applying for a longer license term. Recognizing the pending closure of NRU and the organizational changes taking place for CNL, Cnse staff concurred with the proposed approach and recommended a license with an expiry date of March 31st, 2018. Following public hearings, the Commission issued a license to CNL authorizing continued operation to March 31st, 2018. CNL's current license authorizes a broad range of activities at the Chalk River site. Construction, operation, safe storage, and decommissioning are all authorized and currently conducted activities at Chalk River Laboratories. Changes that fall within the licensing basis are permitted subject to CNSC staff verification to ensure compliance. The license includes the authorization to accept waste from off-site clients. This authorization has been in place at CRL for several decades. Looking ahead, CNSC staff note that the pending permanent shutdown of NRU at the end of the current license represents the most significant operational change at CRL and overall decrease in site risks. Focusing now on the license application, CNSC staff have reviewed and assessed CNL's license application and are recommending a 10-year license period. The proposed license and draft license conditions handbook have been prepared following the standardized format and wording that has already been incorporated in several Class 1 licenses that have been issued following public hearings. The proposed license and draft LCH provide clarity and conciseness while maintaining regulatory rigor and no reduction in regulatory requirements or oversight for the proposed facilities and activities going forward. The most significant change in the license requirement is as a result of the permanent shutdown of the NRU and the resulting change in site risk. The proposed license does not authorize the permanent waste disposal facility or near-surface disposal facility referred to in CNL's application. This will be the subject of a future public hearing. The permanent waste disposal facility, or NSDF, referred to in CNL's application. Oops, I'm sorry, that's a repeat. Carrying on, the next few slides discuss in further detail CNSC staff's review and assessment of the CNL license renewal application. CNL submitted its license renewal application in March 2017, requesting a 10-year license term. CNL's application identified 6 areas of focus for CNL during the proposed license period. CNL has reaffirmed its intention to permanently shut down the NRU reactor. CNL has identified in its application its plan to further improve its management system. CNL also plans to continue with its science and technology program, further infrastructure improvements, and continuing to advance on the decommissioning of facilities and waste management initiatives at CRL. CNSC staff note that 5 of the 6 activities are within the current licensing basis. The permanent closure of NRU represents the most significant change in currently authorized activities. The 6th area of focus is the proposed implementation of the near-surface disposal facility, which, as previously noted, is out of scope of this licensing hearing. Just to provide a bit of background on where this particular project is at, CNL has submitted a separate license application for the proposed construction of the NSDF. The project is undergoing an environmental assessment under the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act. The NSDF application will be considered by the Commission at a future hearing. Furthermore, CNSC staff would also like to clarify that the proposed decommissioning of the Nuclear Power Demonstration Reactor, or NPD, in Rolphton, as well as decommissioning of the WR1 reactor, are covered under separate licenses and will not be considered in this hearing. CNSC staff carried out a review and assessment of the CNL application against CNSC regulatory requirements. CNSC staff considered the performance history of Choc River Laboratories, including the results of CNSC compliance verification activities over the last 5 years, and the review of performance data in the areas of radiation safety, environmental protection, and worker safety. CNSC staff also reviewed CNL's implementation of CNSC regulatory documents and industry standards, such as the Canadian Standards Association, or CSA standards, over the last 5 years, and reviewed plans for implementation of recently published standards and regulatory documents. In addition, CNSC staff reviewed CNL's public information and community outreach program. The result of these reviews have led to CNSC staff to conclude that CNL has met the licensing requirements for Choc River Laboratories. Further supporting CNSC staff assessment, and in particular in the safety and control area of environmental protection, CNSC staff conducted an environmental assessment under the Nuclear Safety and Control Act. The EA under the NSCA assessed environmental protection measures, environmental risk assessments, compliance reports, and data gathered in the CNSC Independent Environmental Monitoring Report. CNSC staff's assessment concluded that CNL has made and will continue to make adequate provision for the protection of the environment and the health of workers and the public. The next few slides discuss the draft proposed license and license conditions handbook. CNSC staff supplemental CMD 18H2A provides an overview of the license reform at the CNSC and provides additional clarity on the proposed license and draft LCH for CRL. In 2011, the CRL license was issued accompanied by an LCH. The Safety and Control Area Framework and the licensing basis concept were at their early stage of development and implementation, and the LCH captured the CNSC practices on regulating CRL activities at that time. In addition, the LCH captured extensive details in association with the continued operation of the NRU reactor. The license and LCH included extensive repetition and paraphrasing of text found in CNSC regulatory documents and industry standards. The LCH also included detailed CVCs to capture requirements that had not yet been captured in an industry standard or regulatory document. At the public hearing of April 6, 2016, for the renewal and amendment of the CRL license, CNSC staff informed the Commission that a modern license and LCH would be prepared for the next license renewal. Since then, CNSC staff undertook a thorough review of the current Chalk River license to incorporate the various improvements to the format and content while maintaining or increasing the rigor in regulatory requirements. Staff Supplemental CMD 18H2A provides a detailed table that demonstrates how the proposed license conditions and LCH maintain the rigor of the existing license conditions, while eliminating duplication, redundancy, and paraphrasing as appropriate. The resulting draft License Conditions Handbook provides increased clarity and conciseness while maintaining or increasing regulatory requirements for the activities which are proposed in the license application. Focusing further on the proposed license itself, the proposed CRL license uses standardized wording which has been applied across multiple Class 1 facilities. The proposed license maintains the requirement that the licensee operate within the boundaries captured in the licensing basis. Changes are permitted during the license period as long as they are in compliance with the license conditions and fall within the licensing basis. CNL will continue to be required to notify CNSC staff of changes. Staff will then verify that the changes meet requirements and are within the licensing basis. CNSC staff carry out this verification of changes on a continuous basis as the licensee's operations and documents evolve. And the proposed license conditions requires that CNL implement and maintain programs. The proposed standard license conditions span all 14 SCAs, with the LCH specifying how the requirements are expected to be met. Elaborating a bit further, the license itself always makes it clear how the LCH is to function and its importance to the understanding and enforcement of the license. The proposed CRL license is no different, and the link between the license and the License Conditions Handbook is stated at Part 5C. The Choc River Laboratories License Conditions Handbook provides compliance verification criteria used to verify compliance with the conditions set out in this license. In other words, the LCH sets out what measures will be required in order to be found to be in compliance with the license. A licensee complies with the license by adhering to the criteria spelled out in the LCH. As such, a licensee would risk a finding of non-compliance with a license if it did not respect the CVC set out in the LCH respecting that license. Compliance with the license requires adherence to the CVC in the LCH. In recommending a 10-year license term, CNSC staff took into consideration the following: CNL's operating experience and demonstrated compliance in carrying out the activities under its current license, the robustness of CNL's existing programs that provide assurances that safety-significant activities are well managed and safety is maintained, and ACL's 10-year vision for the Choc River Laboratories and CNL's projects aligned to that vision. Furthermore, throughout the proposed license term, communications with the Commission and public engagement will carry on as a result of reporting requirements. This includes the presentation of regulatory oversight reports to the Commission in public meetings and reporting on events of potential significance to health, safety, and environment or of public interest. In addition, any proposed changes that fall outside of the licensing basis will require authorization by the Commission through the public hearing process. CNSC staff note that CNL will remain the licensees. As has been done in the past, the Commission will be informed of any major changes in the executive overseeing the management and control of activities under the license. Summarizing the last slides, CNSC staff recommend a 10-year license period from April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2028. The draft proposed license applies standardized wording of license condition, which refer to licensee programs. The LCH then sets out the compliance verification criteria that includes referenced CNSC regulatory documents and standards, which are then used to enforce the license. Next, a few slides on CNSC's regulatory oversight of Choc River Laboratories. The CNSC has a robust regulatory framework in place to ensure the continued safe operations of licensed nuclear facilities. Regulatory oversight is provided by CNSC staff to ensure licensees operate in a safe manner and in compliance with the requirements of the Nuclear Safety and Control Act and associated regulations, as well as license conditions and applicable regulatory documents. The CNSC verifies compliance through site inspections and also by desktop review of operational activities and licensee documentation. In addition, licensees are required to report routine performance data and unusual occurrences. CNSC staff carry out investigation of unplanned events or accidents that occur at the licensee site. To complement existing and ongoing compliance activities through the Independent Environmental Monitoring Program, or IEMP, CNSC staff collect samples of environmental media and analyze them in CNSC's analytical laboratory. CNSC's approach to compliance includes activities to encourage compliance verification, to assess compliance and graduate enforcement actions in cases of non-compliance. The attached table is presented in Staff CMD 18-H2. The column for 2017 has been updated to include the most recent information up to the end of 2017. The final numbers will be greater as the final time accounting is completed. Since 2012, CNSC staff spent more than 19,000 person days of regulatory oversight effort. Over the same period, CNSC staff conducted 158 on-site compliance inspections, as well as numerous other site visits, reviews, meetings, and events involving CNSC technical specialists. CNSC staff note that typically performance history evaluations carried out by CNSC staff in support of licensing hearings only covers the previous license period. Since CNL's current license was granted for a short period of 17 months, to provide the Commission more meaningful trending data, CNSC staff have provided information in CMD 18-H2 dating back to 2012. Compliance verification activities conducted by CNSC staff include desktop reviews of program implementation and performance, reviews of reportable events, and a review of CNL's response to these events and any follow-ups. In addition, CNSC staff conduct on-site inspections. As you will observe on the table, the numbers will fluctuate from year to year as resources are allocated to address licensing and compliance priorities for that year, which assures regulatory oversight at all times. The CNSC maintains a site office at the Choc River Laboratories, with CNSC inspectors present to provide day-to-day regulatory oversight of the site. Since 2012, Cnse staff oversight has covered all facilities at the Chalk River Laboratories site. Cnse oversight includes reviews of CNL's responses to events. The implementation of corrective actions is continually monitored to closure by Cnse staff and is tracked using the Regulatory Information Bank tool. When a noncompliance is identified, Cnse staff assess the significance of the noncompliance and determine the appropriate enforcement action. In all cases, Cnse staff reviewed CNL responses to noncompliances and confirmed that suitable actions have been taken to address the noncompliance. CNL is required to report situations or events that, if no action is taken by the licensee, could lead to a serious adverse effect on the environment or serious risk to the health and safety of persons or the maintenance of security. Additionally, as required by Regulatory Document 99.3, CNL has implemented a public information program that includes a disclosure protocol. Under the requirements of this program, CNL provides information to the public on events and incidents of interest to its stakeholder community. When an event is reported by Cnse staff, staff review the event to ensure suitable corrective actions are taken by CNL as needed. Event reports that are significant in nature or may be of significant public interest are brought to the attention of the Commission during public meetings by Cnse staff. Since 2012, 7 such events have been presented to the Commission as outlined in Cnse staff CMD 18-H2. CNL continues to provide periodic reports and event reports required by the reporting program. In December 2017, Cnse staff presented to the Commission Regulatory Document 3.1.2 on reporting requirements for non-power reactor Class 1 facilities. This document improves clarity and consistency of reporting for non-power reactor Class 1 nuclear facilities. Once approved by the Commission and published, the document will be implemented by CNL and added to the LCH for Choc River Laboratories. I will now pass the presentation over to Mr. Nan Tran, who will provide a summary of the performance assessment of Choc River Laboratories.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and members of the Commission. My name is Nan Tran, and I'm a Senior Project Officer with the Nuclear Labs and Research Reactors Division. The next few slides will provide an overview of CNSC staff's performance assessment of the Choc River Laboratories. CNSC regulatory oversight is performed in accordance with a standard set of 14 Safety and Control Areas, or SCAs. The SCAs are technical topics used across all CNSC regulated facilities and activities to assess, evaluate, review, verify, and report on licensee regulatory requirements and performance. As stated in CNSC staff's written submission, CMD 18-H2, CNL has maintained or improved their performance ratings across all SCAs since 2012. To summarize CNSC staff's evaluation of CNL's performance since 2012, the programs at the Choc River Laboratories have met regulatory requirements and are effectively implemented. Worker doses and environmental releases have remained below regulatory limits. CNL's performance has been satisfactory or has improved to satisfactory in all SCAs. And throughout Choc River Laboratories operations, the environment and the public continue to be protected. The table on this slide provides the overall ratings for each safety and control area at the Choc River Laboratories. As detailed in CNSC staff's written submission, CMD 18-H2, CNL has maintained a satisfactory rating across all SCAs and has improved from below expectations to satisfactory in Management System SCA in 2013 and Fitness for Service SCA in 2017. CNSC staff continue to monitor CNL's performance to verify that CNL continues to make adequate provision for the protection of workers, the public, and the environment. The next series of slides discuss CNL's performance in each SCA, starting with the management system. Where the shutdown of NRU has significant impact on an SCA, we will also speak to that impact as we go through the SCAs. The Management System SCA covers the framework that establishes the processes and programs required to assure an organization achieves its safety objectives, continuously monitors its performance against these objectives, and fosters a healthy safety culture. Prior to 2013, CNL was rated below expectations in the Management System SCA. This rating was due to identified shortcomings with the CSA standard N286-05 on management systems. Based on CNL activities to address these shortcomings, Cnse staff raised CNL's performance rating to satisfactory in 2013. More recently, CNL conducted a gap analysis against the requirements of N286-12, the updated version of the same standard. CNL's analysis found that the management system is compliant to the requirements of N286-12. The results of this analysis were confirmed by Cnse staff. Cnse staff conclude that CNL's management system meets regulatory requirements. Since 2016, CNL has been engaged in an update of their management system. This update is carried out as part of the delivery on the terms of the GOCO contract. In carrying out these updates, CNL has identified additional areas for improvement, such as further elimination of redundancies in documentation. Cnse staff verify on an ongoing basis that changes made to the CNL management system are made in accordance with the appropriate regulatory requirements, particularly the CNL change management procedures. Cnse staff will also provide regulatory oversight to ensure safety culture is maintained throughout the shutdown activities of NRU and ongoing site modernization activities. Next, the Human Performance Management Safety and Control area. The Human Performance Management SCA covers activities that enable effective human performance through the development and implementation of processes that ensure a sufficient number of licensee personnel are in all relevant job areas and have the necessary knowledge, skills, procedures, and tools in place to safely carry out their duties. Cnse staff have verified that CNL has established programs to address human performance management. Cnse staff verified that the CNL program meets the requirements of Cnse regulatory document RD 363, Nuclear Security Officer, Medical, Physical, and Psychological Fitness, and that CNL is currently engaged in implementing Cnse Reg Doc 2.2.4, Managing Worker Fatigue. Cnse staff have verified that the CNL training program applies a systematic approach to training for all operations personnel with jobs important to nuclear safety. This systematic approach is graded to the individual job and whether it is a direct or non-direct operating position. Additionally, the CNL training program meets the requirements of Cnse regulatory document Reg Doc 2.2.2 personnel training. CNL is required to ensure certain personnel working at NRU are certified by Cnse as stated in the current and draft proposed licenses. Cnse staff have verified that CNL continues to meet this regulatory requirement. With the shutdown of NRU, this requirement remains in place until CNL presents an assessment to demonstrate that certified personnel are no longer needed due to the shutdown state of NRU. Cnse staff note that CNL currently has enough certified staff in place to meet regulatory requirements. Cnse staff do not anticipate any additional request for certification or request for renewal of certification of CNL staff given the shutdown plan for NRU. Cnse staff conclude that CNL's human performance management meets regulatory requirements. Next, the Operating Performance Sca. The Operating Performance Sca includes an overall review of the conduct of licensed activities and the activities that enable effective performance. Cnse staff have verified that Choc River Laboratories and the facilities on site are operated safely and in compliance with Cnse regulatory requirements. Cnse staff have reviewed programs and documentation to support the activities carried out at the Choc River Labs, including the Conduct of Operations documents, which describe Choc River Laboratories operations as a whole, and the facility authorizations documents, which describe how individual facility operations are conducted, including elements such as operating limits and staffing requirements. An important element to every licensee's operation are the programs in place to review operating experience, or OPEX, and apply corrective actions effectively. These are intended to ensure operations improve from both a safety and performance aspect when new information is gained by a licensee. Additionally, OPEX may be applied to reduce the significance and occurrence of unplanned events. CNSC staff verified that the processes under the OPEX program, including trending, internal and external communication of safety information, and benchmarking, were effective. CNSC staff conclude that CNL operating performance meets regulatory requirements. CNSC staff note that CNL's primary focus for operations was NRU due to the resources required to ensure continued safe operation. Many improvement initiatives related to the NRU were completed by CNL through the Integrated Implementation Plan, including the completion of Fukushima action items and the Severe Accident Management Program. However, in alignment with the decision made by the Government of Canada, CNL will permanently shut down NRU by April 1, 2018. Illustrated on this slide is the NRU operational timeline. CNSC staff note that CNL is currently scheduled to have NRU in defueled, dewatered state by the end of October 2018. As described in CNSC staff CMD 18-H2, CNL has divided the shutdown activities into 5 phases. CNSC staff assessed the CNL approach to the shutdown of our NRU and confirmed that it is consistent with the approach applied by other Canadian reactors put into shutdown state. CNSC staff note that once NRU is shut down, the overall risk profile of the Chalk River Laboratories decreases. The risk profile will decrease a second time when NRU is defueled and dewatered. Aligned with the shutdown of NRU, the molybdenum-99 production facility will be permanently shut down in parallel. The shutdown of NRU represents a significant activity for the Chalk River Laboratories. However, many other facilities are present at the site. Over the proposed license period, CNL plans to make changes to modernize the Chalk River Labs, including changes to improve and upgrade existing facilities, construct replacement facilities to modernize the site and support the CNL's science and technology mission, and consolidate existing activities into modernized facilities. CNSC staff will continue to provide regulatory oversight of these activities. Next, the Safety Analysis Sca. The Safety Analysis Sca covers the maintenance of the safety analyses that supports the overall safety case. Safety analyses is a systematic evaluation of the potential hazards associated with the conduct of a proposed activity or facility and considers the effectiveness of preventative measures and strategies in reducing the effects of such hazards. CNSC staff reviewed CNL's safety analysis program and verified that safety analyses are carried out in accordance with the requirements of CNSC Reg Doc 2.4.1, deterministic safety analyses, and the criticality safety program meets the requirements of CNSC RD 327, nuclear criticality safety. CNSC staff conclude that CNL's safety analyses meets regulatory requirements. CNL previously put a heavy focus on safety analysis to support the operation of NRU. With the shutdown of NRU, CNL will be required to revise the safety analysis to reflect the shutdown state of the reactor. CNSC staff will continue to verify that CNL has suitable safety analyses in place for all nuclear facilities and activities at the Chalk River Laboratories. Next, the Physical Design Sca. The Physical Design Sca relates to activities that impact the ability of structures, systems, and components to meet and maintain their design basis, given new information arising over time and taking changes in the external environment into account. CNSC staff verification of design at Chalk River Laboratories focused on facility design to ensure suitable design codes and standards are applied appropriately. When CNL has proposed new facility designs, CNSC staff have conducted design reviews. CNSC staff conclude, based on these reviews, that CNL's physical design meets regulatory requirements. Next, the Fitness for Service Sca. The Fitness for Service Sca covers activities that impact the physical conditions of structures, systems, and components to ensure they remain effective over time. This area includes programs that verify all equipment is available to perform its intended design function when called upon to do so. CNL was rated below expectations between 2012 and April 2017 due to identified shortcomings in the Fitness for Service Sca, such as the maintenance backlog and the implementation of reliability programs. Fitness for Service has been a focal point for CNL improvement activities at Chalk River Labs. As directed by the Commission, Cnse staff presented a series of updates on Fitness for Service to the Commission between June 2016 and April 2017, when CNL achieved a satisfactory rating. Cnse staff rated CNL satisfactory in 2017 based on CNL's closure of gaps, effective implementation of new programs, closure of Fukushima action items, site-wide infrastructure improvements, and execution of the integrated implementation plan for NRU. CNSE staff have verified that CNL's Fitness for Service includes adequate programs for maintenance, equipment reliability, and inspections. CNSE staff conclude that CNL's Fitness for Service meets regulatory requirements. Since 2012, significant CNL resources were dedicated to ensuring continued fitness for service of NRU. As NRU activities progress, CNL activities related to fitness for service will shift to focus on decommissioning work and site modernization. These activities will have an overall positive effect on fitness for service of the Chalk River Laboratories. For example, CNL waste and decommissioning work also addresses, in some cases, structural integrity of legacy buildings and structures, which improves overall site fitness for service. CNSE staff will continue to provide regulatory oversight of CNL activities related to fitness for service. Next, the Radiation Protection Sca. The Radiation Protection Sca covers the implementation of a radiation protection program in accordance with the Radiation Protection Regulations. This program must ensure that contamination levels and radiation doses received by individuals are monitored, controlled, and maintained as low as reasonably achievable, or ALARA. CNL has implemented and maintained a radiation protection program to control the radiological hazards present in its facilities and to ascertain doses for each person who performs duties in connection with their licensed activities. During the license period, no worker at the Chalk River Laboratories was exposed to a dose exceeding the regulatory dose limits. Similarly, no member of the public received a dose that approached or exceeded the 1 millisievert annual regulatory dose limit for a member of the public. This graph shows the average and maximum individual effective dose for workers at Chalk River Laboratories. Throughout the license period, the maximum individual dose has been to a worker at NRU. Doses to workers have been maintained consistently below the regulatory dose limits throughout the license period. From this, CNSE staff conclude that CNL continues to meet the requirements of the radiation protection regulations and effectively control doses to workers and the public. CNSE staff confirmed that radiation doses to the public are monitored, controlled, and maintained ALARA. The doses to the public are routinely below 10% of regulatory dose limits. The main contributors to the dose to the public are NRU and the facilities associated with radioisotope production. More than 95% of doses to the public are associated with the operation of these facilities. With the shutdown of NRU, CNSE staff expect further decreases to the doses to the public. Next, the conventional health and safety and control area. The Conventional Health and Safety Sca covers the implementation of a program to manage workplace safety hazards and to protect personnel and equipment. CNSE staff verified that CNL's Conventional Health and Safety program meets the requirements of Canada Labour Code Part 2, Occupational Health and Safety. And CNSE staff also confirmed that CNL achieves a high degree of personnel safety through good work practices and safe working conditions. CNSE staff conclude that CNL's Conventional Health and Safety meets regulatory requirements. Recordable lost time injuries are injuries that take place at work and result in workers being unable to return to work to carry out their duties for a period of time. Lost time injuries are a commonly used metric for presenting injury rate data. In reviewing the recordable lost time injuries, CNSC staff consider the severity of these injuries, that is, the total days lost, and the frequency as they relate to the size of the workforce. Since 2012, the frequency and severity rates of recordable lost time injuries at Chalk River Laboratories demonstrate a positive downward trend. CNSC staff continue to verify CNL's safety practices during compliance inspections and site walkdowns. CNSC staff will increase focus on safety practices as construction and decommissioning activities on site increase. Next, the Environmental Protection Safety and Control Area. The Environmental Protection Sca covers programs that identify, control, and monitor all releases of nuclear and hazardous substances and the effects on the environment from facilities or as a result of the licensed activities. CNSE staff have verified that CNL continues to implement and maintain an environmental protection program that meets regulatory requirements. Airborne and liquid radiological emissions remain effectively controlled and well below regulatory limits for radioactive and non-radioactive releases. From its review, CNSC staff confirmed that CNL's environmental protection program meets the requirements of CNSC Reg Doc 2.9.1, Environmental Principles, Assessments, and Protection Measures, CSA Standard N288.4, Environmental Monitoring Programs at Class 1 nuclear facilities and uranium mines and mills, CSA N288.5, Effluent Monitoring Programs at Class 1 nuclear facilities and uranium mines and mills, and CSA N288.6, Environmental Risk Assessment at Class 1 nuclear facilities and uranium mines and mills. CNSC staff conclude that CNL's environmental protection meets regulatory requirements. This figure indicates the low level of airborne emissions from Chalk River Laboratories. The airborne emissions remain far below the dose constraint established by the Commission. CNSC staff note that in 2014, there was an increase in iodine-131 and noble gas releases due to an increased level of molybdenum-99 production that year. This figure indicates the low level of liquid effluent releases from the Chalk River Laboratories. Please note that this figure uses a logarithmic scale. The liquid releases remain far below the dose constraint established by the Commission. Gross alpha and gross beta releases are typically identified at facilities associated with decontamination activities at site. In 2014, there was an increase in these emissions due to an increase in the schedule for decontamination of the flasks from molybdenum-99 production facility. While there was an increase in releases, we note that the releases are still a small fraction, less than 1% of the limits. Over the proposed license period, CNL has committed to continue to enhance its existing environmental protection programs through the implementation of CSA 288.7, groundwater protection programs at Class 1 nuclear facilities and uranium mines and mills, and CSA N288.8, establishing and implementing action levels to control releases to the environment from nuclear facilities. In CNSC staff CMD 18-H2, staff committed to providing an update to the Commission on the results of the assessment of radiological risk to chimney swifts roosting in the molybdenum-99 production facility stack. CNSC staff have since completed the review of the assessment and confirmed CNL's results. The CNSC Independent Environmental Monitoring Program, or IEMP, was implemented to verify that public health and the environment is not adversely affected by releases to the environment around CNSC-regulated facilities. The IEMP was implemented to complement ongoing CNSC verification activities. The previous sampling campaign for Chalk River Laboratories was carried out in 2015, and the next campaign is scheduled for 2019. The detailed results are available on the CNSC website and consistent with the results submitted by CNL. This supports the CNSC staff conclusion that CNL's Environmental Protection Program protects the health and safety of people and the environment. Next, the Emergency Management and Fire Protection Sca. The Emergency Management and Fire Protection Sca covers emergency plans and emergency preparedness programs that exist for emergencies and non-routine conditions. CNSC staff have verified that CNL has capabilities in place to respond to credible nuclear and conventional emergencies, and CNSC staff conclude that CNL continues to meet its regulatory requirements regarding the emergency management program. Since 2012, CNL continues to make improvements related to related to fulfilling its emergency management and fire protection requirements. CNL has completed the improvements and significant activities outlined on this slide. CNSC staff verified that CNL has been an active, cooperative participant working with provincial authorities in both Ontario and Quebec, as well as municipal and regional authorities to ensure suitable emergency plans are developed and in place. CNL has met the requirements related to the pre-distribution of potassium iodide tablets, or KI pills, to all residents, businesses, and institutions within the primary zone of the Chalk River Laboratories. CNL has also pre-stocked sufficient potassium iodide tablets out to the secondary zone. With the shutdown of NRU, the risk profile of the Chalk River Laboratories decreases significantly. CNL must be able to respond to any emergency at the site at all times. However, once NRU is shut down, defueled, and dewatered, the credible off-site scenarios decrease significantly. CNL will update response arrangements and their response programs to reflect the changing nature of the Chalk River Laboratories. CNSC will continue to monitor CNL's emergency response arrangements to verify continued compliance with the regulatory requirements. Next, the Waste and Decommissioning Sca. The Waste Management Sca covers internal waste-related programs that form part of the facility's operations up to the point where waste is removed from the facility to a separate waste management facility. This area also covers the planning for decommissioning. CNSC staff review of CNL's waste management program verified that CNL meets the requirements of CSA N292.1, wet storage of irradiated fuel and other radioactive materials, CSA N292.2, interim dry storage of irradiated fuels, and CSA N292.3, management of low and intermediate level radioactive waste. CNSC staff confirmed that waste and decommissioning programs at CRL are mature and well established. CNL Waste Management Program manages the generation, handling, transportation, and storage of nuclear wastes, including waste minimization during all phases of its operation. CNL has also established an integrated waste management strategy. CNSC staff have verified that since 2012, CNL has improved waste management practices at CRL for activities including waste characterization, segregation, treatment and retrieval, waste management record keeping, recycling of waste, radiological surveys of waste. CNSC staff conclude that CNL's waste and decommissioning meets regulatory requirements. The Nuclear Legacy Liabilities Program, or NLLP, was established to safely and cost-effectively reduce the nuclear legacy liabilities and associated risks based on sound decommission, waste management, and environmental principles in the best interest of Canadians. The NLP was established and administered by Natural Resources Canada until 2015, when responsibilities for management of the legacy liabilities was transferred to CNL through the terms of the GOCO contract. CNL now manages the nuclear legacy liabilities on the Chalk River Labs site through CNL's operational activities, including the waste and decommissioning programs. CNSC staff have verified that CNL has implemented and established a suitable comprehensive preliminary decommissioning plan, or CPDP, with appropriate cost estimates for decommissioning, and that the decommissioning program meets all regulatory requirements related to decommissioning planning and decommissioning of facilities. CNL is required to update the CPDP at a minimum once every 5 years. The current version of the CPDP was submitted to CNSC staff in 2014. Due to anticipated changes in the decommissioning activities, CNL is currently updating the CPDP. CNSC staff expect updates of the CPDP more frequently than the minimum once every 5 years due to the changes ongoing at the Chalk River Laboratories. CNSC staff continue to review the CPDP when it is revised to ensure continued suitability of the plan. Next, the Security Sca. The Security Sca covers programs required to implement and support security requirements stipulated in the regulations, the license, orders, or expectations for the facility or activity. CNSC staff verified that CNL's security program meets the requirements of the nuclear security regulations. Additionally, staff have confirmed that the CNL program currently meets the requirements of CNSC regulatory documents, RD 321, criteria for physical protection systems and devices at high security sites, RD 361, criteria for explosive substance detection, X-ray imaging, and metal detection devices at high security sites, Reg Doc 2.12.1, high security sites, the nuclear response force, Reg Doc 2.12.2, site access security clearance, and the CSA standard N290.7, cybersecurity for nuclear power plants and small reactor facilities. CNSC staff conclude that CNL's security meets regulatory requirements. Next, the Safeguards Sca. The Safeguards and Non-Proliferation Sca covers programs and activities required for the successful implementation of the obligations arising from the Government of Canada and the IAEA Safeguards Agreements, as well as other measures from the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, or NPT, and bilateral nuclear cooperation agreements. CNSC staff have reviewed CNL's Safeguards program and confirm it meets CNSC regulatory requirements to meet Canada's international safeguards obligations and commitments. CNSC staff confirmed that CNL continues to provide access and assistance to the IAEA inspectors when requested. CNL's Safeguards program is compliant to CNSC Reg Doc RD 336, accounting and reporting of nuclear material, and CNL has implemented reporting using the CNSC's Nuclear Materials Accountancy Reporting, or NMAR portal. The scope of the non-proliferation program for CNL is limited to the tracking and reporting of foreign obligations and origins of nuclear material. This tracking and reporting assists the CNSC in the implementation of Canada's bilateral nuclear cooperation agreements with other countries. The import and export of controlled nuclear substances, equipment, and information identified in the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Import and Export Control Regulations requires a separate authorization from CNSC consistent with subsection 3.2 of the General Nuclear Safety and Control Regulations. CNSC staff conclude that CNL's Safeguards and Non-Proliferation meet regulatory requirements. Next, the Packaging and Transport Sca. The Packaging and Transport Sca covers programs for the safe packaging and transport of nuclear substances to and from the licensed facility. CNSC staff confirmed that CNL has implemented a packaging and transport program that meets the requirements of the Packaging and Transport of Nuclear Substances Regulations, 2015, and the Transportation of Dangerous Goods Regulations. CNSC staff conclude CNL's packaging and transport meets regulatory requirements. In 2010, the governments of Canada and the United States of America committed to repatriate high-enriched uranium, or HEU, to the United States as part of a broad international effort to consolidate HEU inventories in fewer locations around the world. The commitment eliminates a nuclear liability for future generations of Canadians and improves safety by consolidating HEU inventories worldwide. CNL is responsible to contribute to fulfilling Canada's commitment on repatriation. The CNSC has assigned a multidisciplinary team for the oversight of the repatriation activities. This team includes security specialists, transport and packaging specialists, and on-site inspectors. The shipments of HEU are subject to stringent certification, security transport security plan, and safety analysis requirements. These stringent requirements were recently verified by CNSC inspectors and found to be in compliance. There have been no incidents related to these shipments as CNL contributes to Canada fulfilling its commitment to repatriate HEU. Next, an overview of other matters of regulatory interest as presented in CNSC Staff CMD 18-H2. Prior to this hearing, CNSC staff posted a notice of hearing on the CNSC website. The same notice was sent out to subscribers and advertised in digital and print media. CNSC staff provided information on the CNSC licensing process and Chalk River Laboratories relicensing, at outreach sessions in Deep River and Sheenborough in April of 2017. Additionally, CNSC staff hosted webinars to provide information to the public on the role of CNSC and the next steps of the relicensing process. CNSC staff note that CNL continues to host meetings of the Environmental Stewardship Council as recommended by the Commission. Next, we provide information on engagement with Indigenous groups. The CNSC is committed to regular, formalized, and structured engagement with all Indigenous communities. CNSC staff identified First Nations and Métis groups who may have an interest in the proposed license decision. Those 5 groups are the Algonquins of Ontario, the Algonquins of Quebec, Kitigan Zibi Ashinabeg, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and the Union of Ontario Indians. CNSC staff sent letters of notification to the identified groups in July 2017. These letters provided information regarding the proposed license renewal decision, the availability of participant funding, and details on how to participate in the process. The letters were followed up with phone calls to ensure reception of the letters and to answer any further questions about the regulatory process and how to get involved. Additionally, CNSC staff note that CNL maintains relationships with Indigenous groups and continues to engage with the communities through the Environmental Stewardship Council. Next, we provide information on the CNSC Participant Funding Program. The CNSC Participant Funding Program, or PFP, has been implemented to assist members of the public, Indigenous groups, and other stakeholders in providing value-added information to the Commission through informed and topic-specific interventions. The CNSC made up to $75,000 available through the PFP, and up to $72,199 was awarded by the Independent Funding Review Committee to the 6 recipients listed on this slide. These recipients will be presenting oral interventions to the Commission over the next few days. Next, we will provide information on the interventions received. The CNSC received 88 interventions for this hearing, with 54 requests for oral intervention. The themes from these interventions include the proposed length of the license, the format of the proposed license and the draft LCH, references to and use of the Canadian Standards Association standards, governance of CNL under the GOCO model, management of radioactive waste and decommissioning activities at Chalk River Laboratories, and emergency management and response. Information on these topics have been presented in this presentation, as well as CNSC staff supplementary CMD 18-H2.A. Next, we provide information on cost recovery, nuclear liability insurance, financial guarantees, and the public information program. CNSC staff verified that CNL continues to comply with the cost recovery fees regulations. Natural Resources Canada has confirmed that CNL maintains adequate nuclear liability insurance under the Nuclear Liability and Compensation Act, which came into force on January 1, 2017, and is now administered by Natural Resources Canada. CNSC staff have confirmed CNL has a suitable financial guarantee in place and maintains cost estimates for decommissioning of the Chalk River Laboratories. CNSC staff confirmed that CNL's Public Information and Disclosure Program meets the requirements of CNSC RDGD 99.3, Public Information and Disclosure. I now pass the presentation back to Ms. Tadros to present CNSC staff's conclusions and recommendations.
Thank you. To summarize, the pending shutdown of NRU will result in a reduction of the actual and potential impacts from operations at the Choc River Laboratories. As noted in Cnse staff's presentation of the safety and control areas, the shutdown of NRU will significantly reduce emissions to air and water, virtually eliminate doses to the public, and eliminate the possibility of off-site consequences from credible emergencies. The NRU reactor is the only facility requiring certified personnel. Its closure will eliminate the need for certified staff. Operations and maintenance activities at the Choc River Laboratories have been focused on the continued operation of NRU. With the closure of NRU, the operations and maintenance requirements are concentrated on the remaining facilities, which represent significantly less risk. The safety analysis for NRU is highly complex and has required significant effort to adequately maintain and assess. The remaining safety analyses are far less complex, with scopes that represent a significant reduction of risk when compared to NRU. So beyond the pending NRU shutdown, there are no other changes to the currently authorized licensed activities at the Choc River Laboratories. CNL continues to maintain strong and effective programs that are being improved on an ongoing basis to meet best practices, address emerging issues, and meet additional regulatory requirements. The proposed 10-year license term ensures regulatory certainty of the licensed activities and allows CNL to continue its safe operation while ensuring transparency of operations and public engagement. Cnse staff will continue regulatory oversight, including inspections, reviews of reported information, and reviews of any applications submitted. It is important to note that any major changes proposed by CNL at any time would be brought back to the Commission for decision. With respect to paragraphs 24(4)(a) and (b) of the Nuclear Safety and Control Act, Cnse staff conclude that CNL is qualified to carry on the activities authorized by the license and will, in carrying out these activities, make adequate provision for the protection of the environment, the health and safety of persons, and the maintenance of national security and measures required to implement international obligations to which Canada has agreed. Therefore, Cnse staff recommend that the Commission accept Cnse staff's conclusions and recommendations presented in Cnse staff's CMD 18H2 to authorize CNL to operate the Choc River Laboratories to March 31, 2028, pursuant to Section 24(2) of the Nuclear Safety and Control Act. Thank you for your attention. We are available to take any questions you may have.
Thank you.